All right, hello once again. This is Jeff Scott of Rankin Technical College, and as part of the Rankin Technical College AWD 1000 Web Development Technologies course, I'm creating a series of video presentations that are based on the Mozilla Developer Network Learn Web Development series. We're coming to the end, and we're at the server-side Express Node.js stuff, and I goofed up a little bit previously, and I'm going to fix it right now. So, one thing that we should do, and the reason I got this error is Express hasn't been loaded, but there's other things I should be doing as well. So let me clear this, and let me type in npm start. Again, I don't know what my problem is, but it's npm init. All right, so it's asking me my package name, which is the name of the folder. Yes, I want to keep it as test node. And the version, this is my version 1, a description, simple demo demonstrating Express with Node.js. Entry point, yes, it will be express.js. The test command, there won't be any. The Git repository, I'm not going to put this out to Git for now. Keywords, I could put them in, I'm not going to. Author, I can put in my name. License, I'm just going to use the default. And it built this file for me. This is a package.json file, which basically has in it this. All right, and it says, is this okay? And I'm going to just hit enter there. Now, what has happened here is I now have this package.json file. It's the same stuff I just put in and I showed you. All right. The other thing that I want to do is I want to come in and I want to install Express. It isn't given to me by default. So in other words, before I run this program, I want to type in npm install Express. And I'm going to put it here -- save. Don't worry about what that does. We'll talk about that at another time. So it says that it is installed Express. What did that do? Well, if I come out here and look, I now have a folder called Node Modules, which is got over a meg in it. What is that? It's got all of the dependencies for Express. All right, now I'm going to come back in, and as I tried to do previously, I'm going to attempt to run my node express.js. Now it says that it's listening on port 3000, all right, which is good. That line that you saw right there that says example app listing on port 3000, that is from, that is from right there. That's the console log. If this works, once I put in localhost :3000, I should get the message back, hello world. All right, just as we did previously, but with an exclamation point. All right, so let's bring that up. And we will come in and we will localhost :3000. And there's our hello world. Boom. It worked. We were able to add Express. All right. So it says the first two lines here require or import the Express model and create an instance. The object is traditionally named app, and as it says, it has methods for routing HTTP requests, configuring middleware, and doing a lot of other things. This code that's right here shows what's called a route definition. So when we do a get, which is just literally bringing it up, all right, it's what it's supposed to do. The app.get, as it says, it specifies a callback function. So it will invoke this. It will invoke this whenever there is a get request with a path of /, which is the default or root. So it comes back using send to give me a hello world. And again, that last block, as it mentions, starts up the application and lets us know that we're going to be running it on port 3000. All right. Now, we just went in and we just required Express. In order to do that, basically what happened is we went out to the npm package manager. So let's look on, I think it's npm.org. I could be wrong. All right, doesn't look like that's correct. So npm package manager, I think it's npm.js now that I think about it. Yep, npmjs.com. All right, and if I come in here and I put in a search for Express, there it is. Fast, unopinionated, minimalist web framework. You've seen that, heard that stuff before. All right. So that's what we ended up doing. So as they say here, a module again is a JavaScript library file that you can import into other code using Node's require function. Express itself is a module, as are the middleware and database libraries that we will use in our Express applications. The code below, that you can see the first line of which is in blue, shows how to import a module by name using the Express framework. All right. You can also create your own modules to be imported this way. You will want to create your own modules because this allows you to organize your code into manageable parts. It's the same way that, with anything else, that when you create a program, you don't want to throw everything into one routine. You want to break it up. You don't want a monolithic single file application. It's hard to understand, it's hard to maintain, and if it gets to be big enough that you've got multiple people working on it, it gets to be real clumsy. Using modules, as it says, also helps you manage your namespace because only the variables you need to explicitly export are imported when you use a module. All right. To make modules available outside, to make objects available outside of a module, you need to expose them as additional properties. For example, it says here, the square.js module below is a file that exports area and perimeter. It says we can import this module using require. So notice we're requiring this, and that's assuming that it's saved as square.js. Then we can go in and use it. Now, if that doesn't make any sense, don't let it bother you because that's what we're going to be doing. You can also specify an absolute path to a module or a name. All right. If you want to export a complete object in one assignment instead of building a property at a time, you can assign it to the module exports and then throw everything in there as shown. They mention here you can think of exports as a shortcut to module.exports. So you put it on the end, typically you use export. When you put it at the top, you say module.exports. All right. JavaScript code frequently uses asynchronous rather than synchronous application program interfaces for operations that may take time to complete. A synchronous API is one in which each operation must complete before the next operation can start. For example, it says by default, log functions are synchronous. So if I've got, if I have 10 of these, it'll do first, second, third, fourth, etc. However, if I come in and do something like this, it's not going to print first and then second as it's shown above. It's going to say, oh, wait for 3 seconds, and while you're waiting, go down and do whatever's next. So it's going to print second, and then when that 3-second timer goes off, it'll print first. All right, that's an asynchronous operation, and as it says there, by contrast, an asynchronous API is one in which the API will start an operation and immediately return even before the operation is complete. Once the operation finishes, the API will use some mechanism to perform additional operations. All right. Using non-blocking asynchronous APIs is even more important on Node than in the browser because Node is a single-threaded, event-driven execution environment, meaning that all requests are run on the same thread. Technically, that's not true. They're all run on what is referred to as the UI thread, all right? But basically, it is true. All right, this model is extremely efficient in terms of speed and server resources, but it means that if you have any functions that call synchronous methods, it could take a long time to complete. For instance, if you were calling a database function that you knew was going to take several seconds to complete, it blocks the current request. All right, not just that one, but every other request that comes after it. There are a number of ways for an asynchronous API to notify the application that it's been completed. The most common way is what we just saw with a callback function that says, hey, call this once the operation has completed. Now, as mentioned here, using callbacks can be messy. It can lead to callback hell. We talked about this earlier. All right, and it says this can be reduced with good programming practices using async await or promises. All right, a common convention for Node and Express is to use error first callback. In this convention, the first value in your callback is an error value, which says basically what you want to do if something does not succeed. Subsequent arguments contain success data. There is a good explanation of why this approach is useful in the following blog. It's worth your time to start checking this stuff out. All right. In the Hello Express example that we looked at, as it says there, we defined a callback route handler function to the root. So this says when you do a get and you don't give it any path or you just say slash, this is what should run. So this is the callback. The callback function takes the request. That's REQ. You can type in the whole word request. Most people just type in REQ. All right. And the response. This is that fat arrow notation. So what I'm telling you is this could have, I'm going to put them both in here, and hopefully I'm not going to screw up the syntax. All right. This is how you'll typically see it written. All right. But, and this is, yeah, okay. It is also permissible to write app get and to use a function in here. All right. In fact, I'm trying to remember the exact syntax, but I think it's function request response, and it would be like this. I believe I've got the right syntax in there. All right. You'll almost never see it like this, and we will basically exclusively be writing it like this. All right. It says you can use any argument names you like for callback functions. When the callback invoked, the first argument will be the request and the second is the response. But you'll almost always see them as either the word request or REQ and the word response or RES. All right. The Express application object provides methods to define route handlers for the other HTTP verbs. I'm not going to read them. You can see them yourselves. There's even a special routing method, app.all, which, as it says, will be called in response to any method. This can be used for loading middleware functions at a particular path for all request methods, and they show an example here. All right. Routes allow you to match patterns of characters in a URL and extract some values from the URL and pass them as parameters to the route handler as attributes of the request object. This probably is making very little sense right now, and that's actually okay. We will be working on this stuff, especially, like I said, this is the heart and soul of the AWD 1111 database-driven web development class. All right. Often it is useful to group route handlers for a particular part of a site together and access them using a common route prefix. In Express, this is achieved using the express.router object. For example, we can create our wiki route in a module named wiki and then export it. All right. So in English, what this is saying, we're including Express, etc., but we can take some of our logic, so to speak, and put it into another file and then bring it into the file that we're going to use it in. All right, so to use the router in our main app file, we would do this. And again, I can't say this to you too many times. If it's not totally making sense right now, don't let it bother you. All right, what do we got left? Middleware, static files, etc. We've got a bit left here. So rather than going on, I'm going to again stop because I'm trying to do this as deliberately as I can.